Hello, everyone. This is John Reinhart. I'm a serial entrepreneur, and I'm especially pleased today to have my guest, the CEO and co-founder of the Thrive Center, Sheri Rose. And we're going to talk all about the Thrive and the impact of Thrive and Sheri's impact across the landscape of age tech and health tech. And we'll be right back after a quick message. And I'm thrilled to sit in for Steve Moran today and as a guest host.
Hey guys, Steve Moran here.
Great. Well, thanks, Sheri, for coming on with me. And you and I have been colleagues and friends, and been making impact in a lot of variety of ways. And I'm especially excited to share the inside look at Thrive and Sheri Rose, and as you built out Thrive. But tell us a little bit about, and a lot of people don't know, maybe your background and a little bit of how you ended up sort of co-creating and making Thrive what it is today. And I think everybody would really appreciate sort of how you became for entrepreneurial, so to speak.
Yeah, this will be an interesting conversation. Of course, John, you and I met years ago. I was working at AT&T, and you and I were both serving on the eHealth Network Committee. You were representing your company. I was a representative of AT&T, and we met at that time, and we talked about one day when I was to take early retirement, being more on the entrepreneurial side. And so the opportunity arose, and I took early retirement, launched into consulting, and joined Commonwealth Leverage as a consultant. I enjoyed doing that, working on population health management and with some clients. And then the opportunity arose for both you and I to be co-founders of the Thrive Center. And little did I know at the time that I would end up running the Thrive Center, but it's been a passion. So, my degrees are in psychology. So I've really merged my passion for people with my tech background. And so it's really been a joy to co-found Thrive Center and then to stay on and run it since 2017.
So I think you give me far too much credit. So I had an idea that said, we needed to touch and feel innovation, but it was really Sheri's work with several partners. When I met her at AT&T, she was in education, healthcare, and tech, and so those partnerships have really come to bear. So the brief history of how you sort of envisioned from our dream to reality and to make it a physical center, and maybe discuss a little bit about the CDW partnership and how you all kind of brought it to life, so to speak. 10 years ago now, by the way.
I know, yeah. 2017. We actually filed the Articles of Incorporation in 2016 and then opened our doors in 2017. But we knew what we didn't want to be, and that was a trade show floor where all you would do is walk the floor. You would talk to someone who was more on the marketing side, and I'd done that my career. John, I know you've done that throughout your career. And what I realized is you don't really find out a lot in some of the bigger trade shows. They want your card to make a sales call. So we knew we didn't want to be that kind of exhibit. We wanted to be more immersive, where the industry could join us, where they could come in and see the technologies, have educational programs around those technologies. And so we really started more about how do we curate the message? How do we curate that message around technology and how it can really impact the lives of our older adults and the senior living organizations that are caring for those older adults. And so when we first opened our doors, we had no idea who would walk through. And then it started to grow and the word got out. And Then we had an opportunity to partner with CDW, who is really our official technology partner. They've invested a lot in the Thrive Center. They liked the concept, and they thought, wow, what a way to bring technology to the market. A little bit about CDW, they have transformation centers, but most of what they were doing was around hospital market. And so we are really their only post-acute transformation center. They are a big partner of ours, a big investor in what we do. However, we have maintained our nonprofit status. And we did that originally just to really drive collaboration in the industry, where a lot of innovation, as you know, John, was occurring. You were working in innovation for Signature Healthcare, and it was occurring internal to a lot of the organizations. But to really drive collaboration, we stepped outside, formed a nonprofit to make it more of a community asset, and then be collaborative with all senior living organizations.
So I think it's great maybe to give people a little bit of details, so I'm on the board, so we watched you and the organization grow and develop into what it is today. Kudos to all the great partnership work with CDW, but the Thrive Center 1, not 2.0, but 1 was downtown Louisville. And then you were a big champion and said that we have to sort of reimagine and we have to think through after a number of years, sort of what the future holds and what Thrive 2.0, Thrive Reimagined is. So maybe give us a little square footage, maybe the key components, maybe the kinds of things, because it is very unique physical center. It's not, there's programming around it. We'll talk about that in a little bit, but talk about the physicalities of the center, what makes the center, why the new version, who are the partners in the new version, so people can really get a feel how it's evolved.
Yeah, so when we were downtown, what I would say is it really wasn't conducive to the population that we serve. We were doing a lot of work with Bellarmine University and their physical therapy students and faculty. And so we were having older adults come through, amputees. And as you can imagine, in any downtown district, parking becomes an issue. And so the lack of parking, we felt like, this opportunity came up to really move out to where we are today in the Watterson Medical Center with other organizations like Norton Healthcare, University of Louisville Frazier Rehab, and the VA that's on the second floor. And you had to envision, what was it we needed that we didn't have downtown, but it was to open our doors to that population, but also event space. We were starting to host a lot of events. Our event space would hold about 40. And when we talked about 40, that was like 3 to a table. Then COVID hit. And we all had to take a step back. And the impact of COVID, it's like you weren't going to have 3 to a table anymore. We had to shut our doors for a while to the public, like every organization did. And we went virtual. And so when we went virtual, it gave us an opportunity to build out our social media. And so we got a lot of attention and some online programming. And then when Bellarmine approached us about moving to this location that had been vacated for some time, we thought, this is our opportunity to reimagine Thrive 2.0, bigger event space, also to redesign our store, our storefront, our innovation space, and our smart home. And so that's what we have done here.
So tell me a little bit, the conference center, and I know you have some fantastic curated events. I've been fortunate to attend. I know a lot of others have. And several of the guests, I think Steve's have hosted events there, like Jeff Gray hosted an event there with H-Tech Connect. How many can it seat, and what kind of AV does it have, and just sort of what does it offer? And then maybe a little bit of what kind of vendors and when you say smart house, is it all the components of a house, like kitchen, bathroom, bedroom? And what does a person expect to maybe discover there? Because a lot of it, to me, when I look at it, was ambient. You couldn't see it. It didn't jump out at you. It was kind of in the natural flow of where we live and where we want to live, which obviously is a home-like space.
Yeah, so let's talk about the event space for a second. We can now seat comfortably 75 people in there, and you could actually put more than that around the room. We built it out to have AV, so all the audio visual equipment is in there was a big investment. The other thing that we did, we put in a multi-purpose floor. We had carpet in the downtown event space. But as we were doing programs for Parkinson's Dance or Dance for Health, we couldn't have that carpet there. So we created a nice event space with big screens in the front and confidence monitors, and also a catering kitchen on the side. And so it's been great to host larger events in there, and we get more and more requests for that. And then right across the hall from where that event space is where we have our innovation showcase. And as you walk into a smart home. That smart home is fully functional. We have a kitchen in there with all the smart appliances and induction cooktop. But we also recognize that a lot of people don't have induction in the home. So we bring in other technologies that can actually control the stove through LiDAR and turn it off if it happens to be electric or gas. And that's a company we met some time ago, and their whole interest was safety in the home. So with that smart home and all of the technologies that we have in there, the motion sensors in the refrigerator, in the ceiling with Teton computer vision, the bathroom with Trulu, the smart toilet seat that can capture changing condition, a smart voice activated bed. All of these serve an aging population, but it's meant more for someone who wants to maintain their independence for as long as possible. And so we bring a lot of technologies to that smart home to do that. But in all practicality, what we realize is you may not be able to stay there. Safety is usually what drives us from the home. So out on the floor, we have technologies that focus on two things, cognitive decline and mobility. So falls, wandering, those are the things that drive us from our homes. And so now we're in the process of even creating in a room that we have in the back here of the innovation space, a room that's going to be more for skilled. And so we're working with some of the big technology companies on how can we create a command center on the other side of that skilled room and look at the integrations and how to monitor for more skilled and end-of-life care.
And so Steve often talks about, we don't know what we don't know till we're a family member and we're in the throes of it, right? And we all want home is where you live, right? It doesn't matter if it's a community or skilled or assisted or literally at a home. But this idea that everything outside the walls of the hospital kind of takes over from acute care, everything outside the walls of the hospital. But when you think about that, what do you think in terms of what you've heard in the market about how families find this kind of stuff? Because what I love about Thrive is that you all have embedded commercially viable technology. It's not pie in the sky. It's not dream stuff. It's not, prototypes. Maybe talk a little bit about how it's commercially viable, how you vet what gets in there. Can anybody sort of come and order one? Maybe talk about that a little bit, because that's a tough one. How do you find stuff like this normally?
It is tough, and it's tough for the startups as well to go direct to consumer. We open our doors to the public, and we do have a lot of individuals who come through here. Friday, I had a lady who came through here and brought her son who has CP. And she wanted to try on some shoes. I can tell you, I never looked at products that weren't tech until recently when I went out to CES, and I saw shoes, I saw a headband, I saw for sleep. And what I realized is it doesn't have to be high tech. It can be low tech and high touch, but it still meets our vision of transforming quality of life. And so when we established this center, we have a lot of social media presence. So we're pushing out a lot of information on social media. We're in the process now of upgrading all of our website to where if you go to the website and you see innovation, you can drill down and go direct to the companies that are here, all commercially available. And so what we started to do was to also talk to these companies and say, hey, if they see it here, would you give them a Thrive discount? And so many of them with a QR code, if you go to their website, they will sell direct to you, and they'll give you a discount for just seeing it here at Thrive.
I think that's great. I think it's a great idea. I mean, being discovered as an entrepreneur and an entrepreneurial solution that works is very, very tough. But let's touch a little bit on research. I know that research is a big component. I know that Bellarmine University is a nice research partner, but you have research partners from many different places. But talk a little bit about either some of the projects, how they work. Talk about maybe the Veritas Society and maybe some of the recruitment you've done to do some validation with early stage companies. I think it's a really differentiator.
Yeah, so we are a technical and business advisor to some of the early stage startups coming out of the National Institute on Aging. And what's good about that, you mentioned the Veritas Society, that's a group of retired professionals, not all alumni of Bellarmine University, but through Bellarmine University, they come together and they take courses anywhere from dart throwing to history to literature to movies. And so we thought 450 active adults, and I would have some of them come through here, retired nurse practitioners and dentists and doctors, and they would be very interested in what we were doing because we're right across the hall from where they take those classes. And so we established a tech focus group. And that's consumer driven because it's extremely important if you're developing a product for older adults. You may think you know what they would use, but they're going to tell you, and they'll be very honest with, I would use it if, or I would probably never use this. And they're all going to look at affordability. And so they're very focused on, well, this is all great, but can I afford it in my home? And will it work in my home? And so we have an opportunity as well to talk to them about having an infrastructure in place. Some of these products like the Lotus Ring that can control the switches in the home, you can take that with you and it does not need Wi-Fi or internet. But most of the products do. So we have an opportunity really to work with that organization or individual in the home to say, you really need the infrastructure in place. And, but, you know, the other thing on the research side is we've done 7 capstone projects here through Spalding University, who will send their OT doctoral students here, through Bellarmine University, their PT doctoral students. And so they're able to look at some of the technologies here and say, could I do my research around it? So, you know, for example, we had a product in here for stroke recovery. And we had an OT student who did her whole doctoral research on stroke recovery. And, you know, we've had music and memory, too, that have looked at doing their studies out in the community, but using music and memory. And then on mobility and virtual reality. So linking these students, they have an opportunity to see some of the more innovative technologies that they're probably not learning in the classroom. So it's really opened up their eyes to, when they come in here as freshmen, I always ask them, what interested you in OT or PT? And so many of them will say pediatrics or sports management. And I always look at them and say, the jobs will be in geriatrics. And so the student that I had that came in and did stroke recovery, she's like, I was in one of those very first classes, and she thought she knew what she wanted to go into, but she's now a traveling OT and working with older adults. So it really gives us an opportunity to open up their eyes to innovation. And, outside of Spalding and Bellarmine here, John, we've had the Healthy Home Lab out of Pittsburgh reach out to us, Lawrence Tech University out of Southfield, Michigan, and IU. They're all interested in how they can get their students more engaged in innovation.
That's interesting. I always look at Thrive as a convener of the conversation, right? So, and I also use this analogy that Thrive could be a wedding venue and you decide what the celebration looks like. But thinking about some of the events, and I know that with the event center now, you're able to do really curated, high impact. A lot of people are just coming for the first time. Amazing. After all these years, they're still coming for the first time. Just maybe a look forward at some of the upcoming events. And I know some of them are private, some of them may be eligible to be attended, but I would say build your own if you like the concept, but maybe just give a sneak peek at some of the things on the horizon. And you're very busy, I know, besides the small groups and the ad hoc groups and the research groups and the consumer groups, but the dedicated events. And what's really kind of transpiring now is offsite retreats and topical events. Maybe give us a little sneak peek at some of the things that are upcoming, just to give people kind of a flavor for what you're hosting.
Yeah, and the way that kind of starts, CDW will bring in a lot of their clients. So we may be meeting with the executive leadership. And from that, they'll say, my clinical team needs to come. Or they'll host a large leadership conference here. Here a week ago, we had Sedalis Senior Living here. And they brought in about 45 of their top leaders from across Texas, Florida, and Georgia. And they had an opportunity to tour the Thrive Center and also to host a strategy session for their leaders. And then prior to that, we had a tech company, Sage, who came in and they brought their clients. And they wanted them to see, and Sage isn't even in here at the current time. They're looking to come into Thrive. But they wanted them to see the innovation, and they wanted to host them for a strategy session. And that's kind of how it started to work. CDW twice a year will do their executive briefings, and they bring in anywhere from 15 to 25 organizations from across the U.S. And they talk about what's important to them and the challenges that they're facing. And they're in more of, we usually keep that around 40 because what we find is it's more engaging. And when their colleagues are in there, they learn from each other on how did you solve this issue? They always tour the Thrive Center. And, as we've worked with a lot of startups, and I know you're an executive in residence for National Institute on Aging, and what we have realized is sometimes they struggle on what is it that the market wants and how do I get into the market? And so it's that whole commercialization strategy. So coming up here in August, we're going to host a very curated private invite for startups to meet with investors. To meet with other tech companies that were startups that took investment, and now they have a customer, a client, so they can really talk about their challenges and the hurdles and share that with some of these very early stage startups that look at the success story, but they also know the challenges that they had to get there. So we're going to do that in August. And then we're going to have a clinical event coming up here in September. And that's going to be bringing in a clinical team from across the U.S. And they're going to sit among their colleagues and talk about their challenges as well. And then Prudential, long-term care policy holder, they're going to come in and they're going to host an event here for all of their clients.
Awesome. So I want to get to the heart of how Thrive was formed. It was formed by actually provider organizations, and you have some of the best that are serving on your tech committee, and they have a CIO roundtable, and they vet. But one of the most fascinating things about being able to be on the board is to hear all of them vetting and being introduced to innovation. But tell us a little bit about the group that sits at the board with you, that is founders of Thrive, and their organizations from across the country. Maybe just a little bit of who they are, and just give them a little bit of recognition for the real building of Thrive that came with their vision of, they all think outside the walls of what their communities, they think about their community minded. Many of them are nonprofit, but just a little visibility on who they are and sort of who do you have at the table?
So the majority probably are faith-based nonprofits, but not all. I mean, we have Era Living out in Seattle. They are a for-profit, but they came in here through one of the CDW executive briefings, and they're like, I want to be a part of this. And then from the very beginning, the Thrive Alliance, they formed just to really learn from each other. And so they uphold us. They invest in the Thrive Center. They want to look at innovation. That's Pres Homes out of Minnesota, very large multi-site, multi-state organizations. And then you have Nazareth, who's here. You have United Methodist out of New Jersey. You have St. John's in Rochester, New York. And they all have an opportunity to be on the CIO calls to look at new innovation that's coming to the market, to give feedback, to say, hey, I would like to pilot. And what we know is to pilot innovation, it has to be someone who is willing to take that on, and they're very nimble. And what we would tell you is selling into Pres Homes that's multi-site, multi-state, you're going to look at how you're going to scale if that pilot gets through. St. John's, they've taken on a few pilots, and then they've turned around and adopted it. United Methodist, they're always out there in the market looking at artificial intelligence, and they become an expert around AI with Travis there. And so our Thrive Alliance members are really the convening market for a lot of these startups. And we get a lot of feedback from them. They direct where we go. We look at gaps. They're able to talk to each other to see what technologies they're using, what they like. And then anytime we see something new that's coming into the market, we take it back to our Thrive Alliance members.
It's great to have the themes from the actual on the ground folks. So one of the things the last thing I want to have you comment on, then we'll do some parting thoughts, is you become an ecosystem of ecosystems now too, right? So one of the things that most people, they may have heard me or you say, is Louisville is the largest number of headquarters of aging care companies in the country. So the physical location of Louisville with Humana and Signature and Trilogy and Atria, and I mean there's a lot of long-term care and aging care concerned businesses here. But your ecosystem that you put together includes, Mary Furlong, ARP, NIA, CABI. Maybe give a comment about the sort of ecosystem of ecosystems approach, because that's really a continued evolution of conversation and intersections.
Yeah, it has. And, it's all about collaboration. So some of us see some of the same companies, But the one thing that we have is the innovation space here, where people can come in and see and feel and see all of the technology in operation. Again, very different from seeing it on an exhibit floor. We are a test bed for AARP's Age Tech Collaborative. We host 2 pavilions in here, one with the Center for Aging Brain Health Innovation out of Toronto, Canada, and we're a U.S. brain base for them, looking at a lot of products around brain health. And then with the National Institute on Aging, they're able to rotate some of their startups through here as well. So you will, and that's always changing. And so products that you maybe see here today will be new products tomorrow. And so what we did learn is there are a lot of events that are out there. And some of them aren't even having trade show floors anymore. They've gotten away from exhibits, NIC being one, also Senior Living 100 being another. And so where do they go to meet the market? So it has to be that ecosystem that stretches beyond some of these annual conferences. And, what you have to pay to exhibit and hope someone walks by your booth is very different when they come here, because when they come here, they're coming to see the innovation and to have the conversation.
It's always interesting because Mary Furlong on the board, and Mary Furlong Associates just had her conference and all the things that are going on there. But, she's a super convener and she's super well connected. And I have to say, I feel like you're in that category. It's an honor. You're a colleague. You're a great grandmother and mother, and a great professional expert and subject matter expert. So I think if anybody has an advantage of is the future bright, and what should families and Steve and people be thinking about, give us sort of your perspective on what the future will bring, what Thrive will do, or anything else that maybe families like us and you and Steve and our constituents, what would be your vantage point? What's your perspective as a final kind of parting thought for this conversation today? And I thank you for your time.
No, and happy to do this. I always say when you look at the baby boomers, and I am a baby boomer, tech is not new to the baby boomers. So we have to be prepared for them. But the other thing that we realize is we will outpace the workforce 3-to-1. So where are you going to be? And now what we're seeing is a lot of the senior living organizations stepping outside the walls of their community and into the home. And that's where these technologies become so important. How do they integrate back to that organizations that is going to care for them even while they're at home? And then when they can no longer be there, have a bed for them when they transition into skilled. And I think we're going to see more and more technologies that are non-intrusive, that are monitoring that person in the home. And we sit in a perfect place to showcase that. And it's going to be interesting as we look at the baby boomers and how they adopt these technologies and take the fear out of tech, and the artificial intelligence that's going to play a big role in that as well.
Well, it's an honor and a privilege. It's great to make impact. I hope more impact for us in the future, and together collaboratively, and to the market and all the constituents that collaborate with us. I love your final thought. It's not high tech and even low tech. It's high touch with tech. And I think that's what I take away from this. And so we appreciate the time, and thanks for joining us, everyone.
Thank you.